The Learning Progress Continuum is a ministry requirement in K-9. Along with descriptive feedback, it is used to support learning throughout the school year. The 4 stages of the continuum are emerging, developing, proficient, and extending. The continuum is used in relation to learning standards, which are made up of the curricular competencies and content within British Columbia's curriculum. As students explore given learning standards through various learning experiences, they continue to develop more independence and consistency in their ability to demonstrate their learning over time. While students can show growth in general in their learning, the Learning Progress Continuum is used to specifically assess progress, which is growth in relation to the grade level learning standards. Students who are just beginning to, or are not yet able to demonstrate learning in relation to learning standards are assessed as emerging, as with students who are at the time only able to demonstrate the learning standards with direct support. Developing indicates that a student is demonstrating learning in relation to learning standards with growing consistency and independence. Proficient indicates that a student is demonstrating learning in relation to learning standards with consistency and independence. Students assessed as proficient may require support at times, but primarily they are able to demonstrate their learning independently and consistently most of the time. It is also worth noting that if at the time of the written learning update, a student is demonstrating their learning independently and consistently, they should be assessed as proficient, even if they require support all throughout the term to get to where they are now. Finally, extending is a student demonstrating learning in relation to learning standards with consistency, independence, and increasing depth and complexity. It's important to note that extending is not an A, a bonus, or a reward, and does not necessarily require that students do a greater volume of work or work at a higher grade level. Teachers support all learners with their ongoing growth, including supporting students who are proficient in progressing towards extending. Extending can come in many forms. It can be a student applying their thinking further, exploring more complex learning standards, demonstrating their learning in multiple ways, applying their learning to other curricular areas, to outside the classroom or in the community, or by supporting the learning of their peers. For example, take a student learning to estimate reasonably. They would be assessed as emerging if, for example, they can only estimate reasonably with direct support from an adult. If the student can estimate reasonably with teacher guidance, but is still growing in their ability to estimate reasonably on their own, they'd be assessed as developing. If that same student over time is able to estimate reasonably most of the time on their own, they'd be assessed as proficient. And if, for example, that student extends their learning and uses estimation with more complex mathematical concepts, they'd be assessed as extending. Students grow and progress all throughout the school year, and along with descriptive feedback, the Learning Progress Continuum supports students in understanding where they're at in their own learning and in relation to the learning standards.